knowing people on death row personally that are going through these, that are living these issues. One person that the campaign to end the death penalty has had an ongoing relationship with is Delia Meyer, whose brother, Louis Perez, is currently on death row in Texas. Correct me if I'm wrong, but his case, you sort of have a connection to his case through Angel Resendiz, right? Did you work on the Angel Resendiz case so much? That case itself ties in so many issues with the death penalty because Angel Resendiz was a very, very sick man. Obviously, I mean, one of the most notorious killers in recent Texas history, but also extremely, extremely ill. And that also brings to light the the belief that we have that Luis Castro Perez is innocent and has been wrongfully convicted of a crime that Angel Resendiz was probably responsible for. Delia has been a very, very strong activist in our movement. She could have easily, given her situation, given the emotional pressure that she's and her family is under, could have easily buckled and given up, but she hasn't. And so we are always in support of her, and we're trying to do everything we can to tell the public all the things that are going wrong, not just with Luis Castro Perez, but all the other 400 men on death row. And so we'd like to welcome you to tell your story.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very, very grateful to be here. My brother is always very, very thankful that we are allowed to talk about his case. And I guess really, now that I'm sitting next to Robin, I've said this before, but when this tragedy first happened to our family, the first person that I went to see was Lily and this group, and someone mentioned Rob's name, and so I immediately went and knocked on Rob's door and walked in the door and sat down with them, and he said, "Don't ever give up, that most people give up and their loved ones are executed." And it's been 8 years since my brother was sent to death row for a crime that he absolutely did not commit. And I always remember Rob's words, and I truly appreciated that because I have not given up, and I will not give up. And it has been truly the worst possible nightmare that any family could ever go through. And I think that it has given me, strength to keep fighting, not just because he's innocent, but because his case is so similar to so many other cases. I mean, you hear the same story over and over and over again with everyone that we speak to. Whether they're innocent or they're not, they still all have the same thread, where there was, where there was prosecutorial some misconduct, or whether there was evidence that was hidden or kept away from the jury, or whether there was an issue with the jury, or when it goes to the appellate courts that they're rubber stamping them without doing any additional investigations. The media, I think, played a big part in my brother's case. And many of you know about my brother's case, and I'm just very going to briefly for the new students. And would you mind passing these pictures around? This is my little brother. Well, he's not so little, he's actually humongous, but which was another reason that the jury convicted him, because he was this big, huge, scary-looking dude. But unfortunately, Louis wouldn't hurt a fly, and he went down really hard in this case. But my brother is Louis Castro Perez, and in September of 1998, two women and a little girl were very brutally murdered here in Austin. And we have always suspected that the railroad serial killer murdered them because we all live within a few blocks of the railroad tracks. And because he actually, Angel Maturino actually confessed to murdering 2 women in Austin in May of 2002, I think it was, to a private investigator that we had sent in after the fact. My brother was in the home that weekend, and so of course his DNA and fingerprints were all over, just like my fingerprints and DNA are all over, and just like yours are all over this building. If somebody comes up dead, we're all going to be the first prime suspects here. So it really just happens that easily and that quickly. But my brother, the girls' names were Michelle and Cinda, and the little girl's name was Stacy. And my brother was there for the weekend. It was over the holiday. As a matter of fact, it was just their 8th anniversary of their death, this past Labor Day. And my brother left the home for the majority of the day. And while he was gone, Michelle was murdered first, and then the little girl when she got home from school at 2:30. And then Cinda was murdered around 5:30 when she got home from work. And they were all very brutally murdered and bludgeoned and stabbed. And it really was a very gruesome scene. And when my brother walked into the home around 5:30 p.m., he found one of the girls on the floor. And she was still kind of struggling for her life, and he ran over to her and he picked her up and she scratched him. And that's where the DNA was found under her nails. Now, unfortunately, my brother was wanted for child support, and he ran from the scene, and he had drugs on him, and he didn't dial 911. So immediately, it just made him more suspect, the main suspect. And then, of course, once they did the investigation, they found his palm print right next to her body, and so that was all she wrote. That was truly all they needed to convict him immediately. And plus, the girls were cops, so it just exacerbated the issue. And so they just went after him with a vengeance, basically. I think the sheriff's department probably went after him first because they had been looking for him for the child support. And then the police department came in, and since they were also, connected with APD, then they went after him even more as a result. And then, of course, it went into the district attorney's office, and I think we're all very well aware that there are some major problems in our DA's office, and many, many cases have been suspect, including the yogurt shop murders and the Pizza Hut murders, and I mean, it's just, just on and on with cases that have been riddled with errors. And so my brother was sent to death row, and it was really, really a tragic ordeal having to sit through the trial where the assistant district attorney is there kind of prancing around with all of the evidence, yet my brother's fingerprints and DNA was not found on any of the murder weapons. They were strangled, they were bludgeoned, they were beaten, they were stabbed, but my brother's fingerprints were not on any of those murder weapons. Yet she was holding them and destroying evidence, as far as I'm concerned, at least compromising the evidence, as she was playing with these ropes and prancing around, pointing to my brother as the murderer and showing these horrific pictures of their brains being split in half and the stabs, and it was just horrific. The jury really was never able to take an unbiased look at it, or I just don't think they were ever able to render any decision based on on facts. It was just thrown at them that this was the murderer, and here is the stuff, and